Hi guys, it's Emily and Mary from Koehler and we are joined today by Alison Ellis. If you remember, Alison was supposed to be here for our spring wedding design show this year, which unfortunately was derailed by COVID-19. But we found a workaround and we're very excited to bring you a series of webinars with Alison. She's going to be joining us for a video today to talk about client communications, booking, and some sales tactics. So Alison, I'll let you take it away. I hope you guys enjoy the content today. Welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. I'm going to hop right on into a screen share, and I prepared a little presentation for you guys. I prepared a few presentations in the spring too, but we'll have to do those another time. So
we will, for sure.
I'm very excited about this topic because this is not something that I cover enough, I think, sometimes, because I just have communication as like, oh, I've got templates for people who need to like send emails or book a client, but diving into a little bit of like what it means to be a communications leader in your business is something that I'm really excited to talk to you guys about today. So thanks for having me.
We're very excited. I think client communications is one of the most important things, and defining expectations for your clients too is something that's very important. So we're really excited to have you here. We'll get started.
Awesome. Defining expectations. I love that you said that because that is what it is all about at the end of the day, right? You cannot wow the client if you fail to meet their expectations all along the way. And so it's really, really important if you want to wow them in the end that you're meeting their expectations. And the most important step there is setting expectations, because if they're expecting something that you never thought you agreed to, or vice versa, right, then it becomes really kind of muddled. So that's why we want to get our communication on point when we're business leaders, right, which is what we are. We like to think of ourselves as floral designers, but we're web designers, communications professionals, right, therapists. We're all of these things wrapped into one. So I want to start out with just a little bit about me. I started working as a florist when I was 16 years old. I actually took my first floral design class when I was in 5th grade, and I really fell in love with floral design. So I'm originally from New Jersey. I always say I've been impersonating a Vermonter for like 22 years now. And I've owned my own business, Floral Artistry, for 18 years. I started it in 2002. The first course I created is called Flower Math, and I am always looking forward in my business. I am not someone who works with last year's business plan. I am not someone who thinks, well, because it worked like this last year, it's going to obviously be like this next year. So looking forward is really, truly what I am always doing in my business. Like I say, according to my son, I sing a little bit too much. According to probably everybody, I sing a little bit too much. I am what I call a floralpreneur, which is my definition of a floralpreneur is a floral designer with initiative and business savvy. You have to be willing to take a step, even if you don't know what you're doing yet, to really move forward in your business. I'm a yogi wannabe. That mostly I got my yogi on during the COVID. I must thank COVID for that. And I love flowers and coffee, of course, as most floral designers do, I think. I'm an avid composter. And fun fact, the very first interactive course I taught on video was a master composter course. Back in 2000, I taught what was called virtual television. We went to like a cable TV, like a local cable station. And I would teach in front of like 5 students, and then it would get transmitted throughout the state to like different locations. Like, we've come a long way, baby. Here we are Zooming today. And I'm also a new author of a book called Falling into Flowers, which is available now. So excited. I know, I'm so excited. So let me dive in here. I worked in flower shops for 9 years. So I learned and trained from different types of shops. I got a lot of different perspective. I graduated with a bachelor in science in plant and soil science from the University of Vermont, and I have a minor in small business. So as I like to say, I'm one of those weirdos who uses my degree in my job. I know that makes me an outcast, but it's true. And I started my home studio business out of my second story apartment in 2002. It was a moment where I was sort of forced into branching out on my own because the flower shop I was working at closed. And it wasn't something where I had all my ducks in a row or was especially prepared. It was just, you kind of get pushed off the cliff. And I've never regretted it. It's always been the best decision I made was to just jump in and start. I continued self-learning, and I still continue self-learning to this day, right? It's like, I love when you're shaking your heads. Yes. Like you have to, keep honing your skills in this business. So I really learned to teach myself by seeking out mentors I trust about how to run the business side of the floral business. And like I mentioned already, I created my very first course, Flower Math, in 2015. And then when a floral designer that I'm friends with approached me and said, you really should make email templates. You should share the way that you talk to customers. It was a real aha moment, like, oh, maybe I have more than just this one course to share. And so in 2016, I released my proposal and my email templates for wedding florists. And so that's me in a nutshell. That's sort of how I got started doing this. And why
I love that you talk about forward thinking and being adaptable and moving ahead all the time. I think that is a very important trait and something that a lot of people could take notes from, especially in, the current climate right now. Like nobody expected COVID. So how are you adapting? What are you doing? How are you staying relevant? Because everything about business has changed. So I'm super excited to hear kind of how you've handled some of that too. So,
yeah.
But the communications end of it becomes more important when you have less face time. So.
Preach it. It's so true. And, that on the, being adaptable, innovating in your business, it's a practiced skill, right? Like you have to practice that discipline of, I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to try this thing that I've never done before, that I don't know anything about. And I might look foolish. I might not be great at this the first time, or I might feel like I'm in over my head. And the more you do that, the less scary that becomes,
I was just going to say that feeling is very scary at first. So you kind of just have to take that leap and trust that it's all going to work out. But that's a tough step to take.
Yeah, it is. And that's why you have to, like I say, we have to see some of these things as not optional. It's not optional right now, right? To figure out how to hold your meetings remotely. It's not optional right now to figure out how you're going to handle upcoming questions about your contract, or how adaptable you will be in 2021 or 2022 if they still can't host their event, or if they have to wear a mask, or when they finally realize, yeah, they will be wearing a mask. And so do they accept that or not? We're constantly adapting, and it takes practice. The more you do it, the easier it becomes. Or maybe not the easier it becomes, but the less taxing it becomes.
Yeah, you get a little bit more comfortable with the risk-taking aspect of that. The more you do it, the less scary it is.
You build up resistance to like the fatigue of trying something new.
Right.
Putting yourself out there. It takes practice, that's for sure. All right, let me dive into my slide here. The serious question of, what business are you in? So I love this one because there are some options, right? Are you in the product business? Are you in the service business? Are you in the experience business? And you can look at this and say, well, I have to pick, what am I? Where do I fit in here? And the answer is that you are all of the above, right? You are a product, service, experience business. And that goes for any business, right? You can plug this into anything, whether it's the country store in the center of my town here, or a Chanel store, it's product, service, experience. Everybody falls into this category. And your touch points are what define your brand experience. So I love that you mentioned, a passion for branding and marketing. I feel the same way. It's like the more you can embrace it, the more fun and interesting it is instead of feeling daunting. But the touch points with your customer, that's where your brand experience really happens. This is everything your client sees or touches. So what are your touch points? Here's a little rundown, right? Your website. For most of us, that is the number one touch point. It's the first thing people experience in our business. It's your storefront, if you actually have a storefront. The phone calls, the phone interactions, whether it's you picking up for a daily order or hopping on a phone consultation for a wedding or event. The in-person meetings that you host, right? How those come together. And it's your emails, your proposals, any written correspondence, right? Your contract, your sales copy, it's all that stuff. These are the touch points with your customer. So we want to pay attention to these touch points, right?
I love that you talk about that too, because there's sort of a misconception with branding sometimes that a brand is your logo or like the visual representation of your brand or how you present yourself on social media, but that's simply like not the case. The brand is the entire experience with your company. So I love that you talked about that, and like how you answer the phone in your client communications, how you greet people when they walk in the store. That's all part of that brand experience. So branding goes beyond logo creation, website, and social media. So I think that's great that you're talking about that, because again, that misconception is kind of widespread, that people don't grasp that, the entire experience from start to finish with a company is branding. That's all branding.
So true. Like when you really put it into, like when you zoom out and you really look down at a business, at a successful business, it's not about how many followers they have. And we're really down this rabbit hole of how many people liked this photo and how many people are following me. I have a Facebook group with, over 9,000 florists in it. And people will ask all the time, like, how can I get more followers? Or, should we start a follow thread? I mean, they don't do that all the time, but it happens from time to time. Having other people who aren't going to buy from you follow you is kind of useless to your company. So we really have, in a lot of ways, as business owners, lost track of what a good brand really is, because you think the person with a lot of followers is a good brand when you have no idea if they can pay their bills this month. All you know is how many followers they have, right? Mm-hmm. So what we want to always do in our good brand is improve our touch points with our customers, right? So how do you improve these touch points to connect with your customers and build trust, right? Because trust is everything. And that starts with clear communication. Clear communication defines the steps for your clients. And I like to think of it like this. It's a dance, right? When you teach the clients the steps, they know how to dance with you. There are too many people who run a business thinking clients should just know the steps. Why are they doing this? Why are they bringing me this same picture all the time? Or why are they just asking me for a price instead of filling out my inquiry form? It's because you didn't define the steps for them, or you didn't create a path that was clear for them to follow. So that clarity helps to lead the client where you want them to go. And that's something we have to really perfect in our business. So from that pre-qualifying stage where you get that first inquiry from a client, all the way up until the point where they book, where they actually sign the contract and give you the deposit. We want to teach them the steps so that they get to yes. We can't just hope they get to yes. We have to show them how to get there. Clear communication improves your touch points, right? So that's what we really want to focus on today. Defining the promise and the steps. That's what clear communication is about. Establishing that trust. Clear communication is going to speak to those ideal clients. And we could do a whole day on just what is an ideal client, right? But speaking to your ideal clients is something that I think people talk about a lot, but don't dive into. And what that means is the clients who are the most eager to shop with you, right? The people who are, as I say, hot to trot for what you are selling and what you're offering. And that's part of building a strong brand, right? So you define the promises and the steps. That establishes trust. You're speaking to the clients who are the most interested in you, and that becomes the foundation for your strong brand. I am really, really focused on long-term strategies, back to that looking ahead thing, back to looking ahead. It isn't about this year or this month. I want to be in business for a long time. Like I've been in business for 18 years. I want to be in business for 18 more years. I don't take for granted what I have today. And so we really want to make sure we're always focused on our brand, what we're delivering to people. So what is your brand, right? It is what you deliver to your customers. What your customers experience says more about your brand than that logo, right? The logo it could be anything. You could have a logo that says, I am the best. But if what you're delivering doesn't feel like the best to your customers, it ain't your brand. It ain't your brand if people aren't saying it about you. So your brand's what people say about your business when you're not there. Mm-hmm. That's your brand. It's how others describe working with you. That's your brand. And it's the promises that you actually keep. And recognizing if you didn't keep a promise, how you're going to reconcile that. That's your brand, right? Strong brands attract, again, that ideal customer dance. When we put the right stuff out there, it attracts the right people. And part of attracting the right people is also repelling the wrong people. That's the flip side of that. So the more authentically you show up with your clear communication, you got your strong brand, you're attracting the right people. And then what you're not even aware of, because it's just happening like magic, you're repelling the people who aren't naturally drawn to you. It's a really wonderful thing when you can do that. When you're strong in your branding, you're speaking to the heart of your clients. You're clear with your communication. You're honest about what you do. You're humble in your way, right? You're humble and recognize you're here to serve the customer. But you're also confident, right? You're confident in the value that you provide and in the service that you provide to customers. And that's when you really are doing that branding work.
I think it's important too to talk about that in the regard that like not all clients are created equal. Some people are not your target market, and that's something to define when you're working on defining your brand as well. Is what type of clients do you want to attract? Because that's very important to building that strong brand as well. Because obviously everybody always wants the sale. We always want the sale, but you have to be comfortable, I think, letting clients who are not right for you and not right for your brand go somewhere else. It's okay. It's okay not to get that sale and not to book every single client, because not every client is right for you.
It's such an important point, because people, especially florists, I hate saying that, but I say it a lot, especially florists, because we are doing art too, right? It feels very personal sometimes when people don't pick you. Oh, I really thought I had this wedding and they didn't book and I'm just crushed, right? That's how florists talk about when someone doesn't book with them. And I get that. We've all had that. Where we're like, yes, that was such a great consultation and I came in on their budget and they still didn't book. Wait, what? I thought this was mine, right?
Right.
And the more you do this, though, the more practiced you are at the branding, at the communication, at leading the clients through the steps I'm about to walk you through here, the better you are at that, the easier it is when someone says, nah, sorry, not for me, you just go, thank you. Thank you for knowing that I wasn't for you. And
It's
you
usually a
can go
blessing
and
in
be with who's
disguise.
right for you, you know? But it's something that's easier said than done, right? It's easy when you're practiced at letting go of the customer that isn't right to say, well, just let go of the customer that isn't right. But when you're not practiced at that, it still feels just like such a gut punch when somebody doesn't pick you. And we have to get over that. All right, let me jump into these steps. Define our steps so the client can dance with you. Defining the steps doesn't have to mean that you're like an authoritarian robot, right? Like, here are the steps. It's customer service. Your steps become customer service. And it starts with that successful screening. This is my favorite, you guys. When people say, I thought this was going to be a right fit, or I wasted my time, this is your solution to those problems. It starts with successful screening. Say that 5 times fast. So we're going to establish authority by screening our clients, gather important details from them, pre-qualify for budget. Can we raise the roof? We're going to pre-qualify for budget, right? So you don't get to the point where you had a consultation, you wrote the proposal, you sent the proposal, and now you're just learning what their budget is. This happens in the pre-screening. You're going to set expectations. Again, we set expectations so we can meet the expectations. And you're going to save a ton of time by pre-screening people. This is where you can find those red flags early instead of like, we've been booked for a month and now all of a sudden you can get them earlier. Failure to pre-qualify. Let's just think about this for a minute. When we fail to pre-qualify, right, it results in budget issues, guaranteed. I can guarantee it. If you are not pre-qualifying, there becomes an awkward moment on the budget where you're not sure what side of this thing you're on. Expectations don't get met when you don't pre-qualify clients. Your time is wasted for no reason. Again, the for no reason is because you can pre-qualify. There is no reason to waste your time with clients who don't have a budget match with you. And when you fail to pre-qualify, you turn into a florist who loves flowers, loves floral design, but resents dealing with customers. You feel guarded about giving a proposal. Well, I don't want to give them that much money, or excuse me, I don't want to give them that much information because I don't even know if they're going to book with me. And overall, as we know, that's going to result in feeling less joy in your business. And we didn't start this business because we wanted to be miserable. Right? We started because we love flowers and we want to do the weddings and we want to do this work. And so it's up to us to save ourselves from having these problems. It's on us. So let's dive into the 4 steps to streamline this booking process. To me, this is where the rubber really hits the road in my processes, or as I like to say, my processes. Just because it's more fun to say. But I think this is what saves me time and sanity and really truly keeps me feeling like I'm the leader. I'm the communications leader in my business. I am, I describe it like this in my Art of Good Business course. It's like, Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers, right? You learn the steps, and it's so important to be the one leading the client, right? But every now and again, you're going to be Ginger Rogers, right? Doing the same steps backwards and in heels. The client may be trying to lead you, right? But you still have to know how to dance with them. And by having some clear steps in your process, it really takes the stress out. With me, it starts with an inquiry form. Then we go into the email reply, which includes an invitation to hop on to a call. And then we've got our phone consultation. So This is a really great post-COVID tip for people. If you've been meeting in person and that's how you book your weddings, switch to my pre-COVID method, which is a phone consultation. So I've been doing phone consultations for years. Clients don't meet me unless we're already under deposit. So raise the roof for don't meet until we already are paid. So, yeah. It's something that it works for me mostly because I'm located in Vermont, where we have destination weddings. People come here from all over the country, all over the world to get married. So they're not just down the street. They're far away. It's easy for me to suggest a phone consultation and have that be what makes sense. But even the customers who are, 15 minutes away from me, or even I had a customer who lived 5 minutes from me. We never met until her wedding day, believe it or not. So you don't have to meet with clients just because you do have a storefront or just because you mostly do local weddings. And now with COVID, it's really the perfect excuse to streamline your system and do a phone consultation instead of a meeting. And then after we do that consultation, we have to send a prompt proposal. And these 4 steps are going to be what determine how likely your customer is to book quickly. So it's really important to follow the steps in order. Step 1. This is the online inquiry form. So this probably feels like a no-brainer to people, right? Everybody has some sort of online inquiry form. What's most important, though, is that we allow clients to share with us openly. So my online inquiry form has only 2 required fields, your name and your email address. And everything else is an open-ended question. You can answer as long as you want. You can give me as much information as you want. There are no drop downs. There's no budget drop down, so that they can pick a drop-down budget. But meanwhile, when you talk to them, they don't have that budget because they just picked whatever they could on your drop-down, right? They just sort of made their best choice. I have open-ended questions for all of these things so that the client can just talk to me. And that's the way I think people should do their online inquiry form. It's a funnel, right? Your online inquiry form is how you want to get people into your sales system, into your communication system. Make it easy for them to reach out to you, right? So you've got this on your website. Click here to contact me. Click here to inquire about a wedding. Click here. And this is where you're going to gather the information that's the most important to you. So I know there are some people who have all required fields. Then there are some people who have questions with little check boxes, right? Tell me everything you need for your wedding. Do you need flower girl flowers? It's like you're losing people right on your form by not making it easy.
Yeah.
Girlfriend, they don't know, right?
Yeah.
The minute you got one of those drop downs that's tell me everything you need for your wedding. What's happening is they get to that flower girl question, right? And this is them for real planning their wedding on their lunch break at work, and or at a meeting at work, on a Zoom meeting. They're like, right. But here they are. They get to flower girls, and they go, "Oh, do we have any flower girls? Oh, I wonder. Let me call my sister." And before you know it, right, you lost them because now they're thinking about, are they having a flower girl? How old is she going to be? Will she? Right. Let's make it easy for people to just get in touch and give us information. Someone can get in touch with me with as little as their name and their email. They don't need to fill out a ton of stuff.
I think the great part about those forms online too is that by the time you get that information, that person is already a fairly qualified lead because they've done the legwork to reach out to you. You don't have to do cold calling or the bridal fairs or that type of stuff. If they are instigating that process and taking the initiative themselves to reach out to you and your business, they're already a qualified lead.
Exactly. And what works for me by having these open-ended questions, right? By saying, make it easier to gather that information. people will share with me all kinds of really juicy nuggets of information. They'll tell me about how they grew up. So one of my questions is like, why did you choose to get married in Vermont? Tell me anything about yourselves. And people will tell me all kinds of things, where they grew up vacationing, that they have a second home in Stowe, that they got engaged in Iceland, that they, whatever the thing is for them, that they, I've told this story before, that they forage for mushrooms. I had one couple write a 1,000 word, swear I'm telling the truth, 1,000 word little essay about themselves when I just said, tell me about yourselves. So it's really as much as we want to, pre-qualify everybody, not everyone who gets to our funnel's gonna be the right fit, but they found us. They spent the time sharing some information, and you can now extrapolate from that. So for example, when somebody says, we grew up with a vacation home in Stowe, I'm like, okay, your family can afford 2 houses. Maybe I'm not so worried to ask you about what your floral budget is. Maybe there's a good chance that you can afford flowers for your wedding because your family has 2 houses. Most families don't have 2 houses, right? Little things like that. You can really get a sense, or I'm in law school right now, or we're moving across the country because my partner's looking for a residency and I'm going to move wherever they move. You get a sense of what's going on in their life. When someone is, finishing law school or about to get a residency somewhere, what do I know about them? They are busy and they just want to book a florist. So if I can be, prompt and on top of that communication, I'm serving the client better because I understand what their story is. Some people will say, especially now with so many people being home and our schedules being all crazy, well, what do you do about clients who want to meet in the evening, right? Well, what about people who want to meet outside of business hours? That's up to you, right? That's up to you how you do your customer experience. But when I get an inquiry and someone's like, oh, I work 12-hour shifts, right? I'm going to maybe be a little bit more accommodating to that customer if I want to book them versus saying, here's when I'm working, right? Letting them tell us about themselves lets us serve them better. And weed out the ones that aren't right, It's not a small detail. So after they fill out our inquiry form, we need to reply to them promptly with an email and an invitation to that phone consultation that I mentioned.
So are there people who fill out the initial inquiry form and you do some of your pre-screening? And so what happens if through the pre-screening, right away that client is not going to be right for you?
Yeah. I love when that happens because then it's like saves me the time of having to get all the way to the phone consultation. There's a couple of different ways I'll handle it. It depends why they're not a right fit, but for the most part at this point, if I'm like, not for me, when they're like, I've got this vision of dyed blue orchids and baby's breath, I'm like, I'm just not available for their date. It's just that simple. And I have got, like I said, I've got email templates that share exactly what I say. But one of the templates I have is like how to tell somebody you're not available. I literally just say, unfortunately, I'm not available. I don't lie and tell them that I'm already booked, unless I am already booked. But I don't hide behind like, I'm sorry, I'm already booked. Or, if it's something literally that, to me, grossly wrong, baby's breath and blue dyed orchids, for example, I'm not trying to educate that client necessarily, right? Like that person and I are just worlds apart style wise. And so I don't need to say to them, I worry about blah, blah, blah with what you're choosing. They can go someplace else and that person can educate them. Or I might choose to educate them, right? I might say, I don't like dyed blue orchids with blah, blah, blah. Baby's breath, a little fragrant. It's not as inexpensive as you may think. It's, but I will very often simply bow out with just I'm not available for your date and I wish you the best. That's it. No lies, no, excuses, just not available. If it's really something very clear though, like just we're not a budget match, where they're just like, I've got $1,000 for flowers and they have 12 bridesmaids and they need 12 centerpieces, then I can be really direct with them and say, this is what I would estimate as a starting place for you, so that they get a sense that when they go to the next florist, it's gonna be more than they're expecting.
Mm-hmm.
So I do everything as much as I talk, and I really do. I am so templated. I do everything based on previous experience that's worked. I still customize everything. I really do. I still make sure that they're getting a reply that is not canned. I don't ever want somebody to see something that came from my company, even if they're not a right fit for me. I don't want them to get a reply from me that feels impersonal.
Mm-hmm.
They should still get a good, that touch point with me should still be on brand for me, even if they're not my ideal customer. So in that first reply, I send an email that has what I call the 4 C's. So these are the 4 things you definitely want to write down. Congratulations on their engagement. Super easy intro. Congratulations. I confirm that I'm available for their date. I compliment them. I always compliment them on either their venue, right? Or on one of the details they mentioned in the form. So for example, peonies, right? A lot of brides like peonies. I don't know if you guys have noticed that. So sometimes a bride will say, I'm getting married in June and I love peonies, but I don't know if they're in season then. And then I'll just say, you picked a perfect time of year to get married if you love peonies. Little things like that, where I give them a little shot in the arm, a little, hey, way to go. You picked a great venue. They take good care of their clients. Something that lets them know that I think they're on the right track. And then I give them a consultation invitation. Literally super simple. I don't give them a Calendly calendar that's got like pick any day you want. I give them 2 days and times when I'm available for the initial call. And almost always at least one of those days and times works for them. Part of also why this works for them is because in my inquiry form, I say, when would you like to schedule a consultation? So they will often give me an idea like evenings are best for me, or I can do anytime, or I'd like to talk on the weekend. And so it gives me a little in terms of like what I should suggest for them. Ooh, fancy effect there. I didn't realize I'd put on that slide. So then after they get that initial reply, we have our consultation scheduled. Now it's time for the actual call. I used to be really, 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 really nervous when I would have phone consultations. And even when, like, before I had a son and it was just my husband and I would like go in the basement and like have the call like all private, so I didn't have anybody listening. And it can take practice to perfect that phone sales persona, but it is totally worth the effort, especially like we've already said now, when you really do want to reduce the amount of contact you have with people that you don't know. This saves time. The phone consultation saves time for you and the client. Just to go back to what I said before, we're not an authoritarian robot telling people what to do. Our steps are also customer service. So for example, somebody can easily say to me, we'll be in Vermont in 5 weeks from now, for something. Can we meet with you then? And I can say, maybe, but I can't guarantee I'm going to have your date in 5 weeks. So if you would like to have a phone consultation, we can get the ball rolling. And then that just sounds like a really reasonable offer from me. It doesn't sound like I'm like, so listen, I can meet with you, but I got to pre-screen you first, right? It's got the the feeling of customer service, this feeling of, well, hey, I don't want you to miss out on the opportunity to work with me, when really it's, let me make sure this is a good fit before I wait 5 weeks to have a call with you, or excuse me, a meeting with you. It establishes trust too when you have this phone call. You can get a sense of people, right? You can gather more information so that you have a clearer sense of what they need in their proposal. And it's a mutual interview, right? So sometimes you super duper don't click and you're glad you didn't have that meeting. And then other times it's so easy that the phone call's all it takes to get the customer to yes. One thing that has helped me tremendously, and I've always had this, is following a script. So I write out, what it is that I want to ask them about, make sure that I get all the pertinent details. The basic flow is, I want to check in, how's the wedding planning going, right? How's everything going? This little question, how's the wedding planning going, is revelatory. You can hear, they're like, it's great. Or again, since there's a COVID cloud over everything, right? Now it's like, well, it's good, but we're worried about this or that. You can have just like a human conversation with them when you actually ask them a genuine question. I inquire as to who else is already booked. This gives you all kinds of information, right? Like, how much are they spending on the photographer, or how low on the totem pole are flowers? Do they have every other vendor except flowers? You're the last, or are you the first? And they haven't even, interviewed a caterer or a photographer. Like, where are you in their priority list? Gives you a little sense on that. And that also gives me a chance to recommend vendors I like to work with, to be honest. So selfishly, it helps me compile a team if they do end up working with me, if I suggest people that I think would be good matches for them. Then I move into like the general conversation, right? The overall style, the feeling, the vibe, the tone of the wedding. But more importantly is like learning a little bit about the couple. And that's something that took me a really, really long time to do. I used to be a authoritarian robot on the phone. It was like, okay, and you need this and you need that, right? I need flower girls, just making the note of all the things. And when you actually just make a connection, when you're just having that conversation, when you're learning about them, maybe outside the wedding even, what do they do? What do they care about? You get a better sense, really, of how to sell to them in an effective way.
I think that aspect of customer service too is very important. I think just from a client standpoint, you want to have a connection with those vendors, because for a lot of people, their wedding day is like the most important day. They're super looking forward to it. It's something that they spent months and a lot of money planning. So to have a vendor that you have a real connection with, I think is very important for a lot of people, because you feel like your vendor gets you then, and it makes that whole planning process a little bit easier. And I also think like taking a more personal approach to customer service, where you legitimately care about the couple as people, not just as a check, goes a really long way with building the trust that you keep talking about too with those clients, and building your brand ultimately, because that's what it goes back to.
So true. That is how I started. I just wanted to book anybody, right? And so if that's where you are in your business, don't worry, been there. But so you're just like trying to get the information, just to get the quote out, just to book the couple, just to book the client. And when you get over that hump, right? Because it is a hump. Everyone's at a different place in their business. Some people are at a place where they need to weed out, right? Too many inquiries. Other people are like, how do I just get somebody to click that contact form? And then there's all those places in between. But that connection piece is what experts do. The connection piece is what people who are in there, they got their mojo, they know how to work it. That's what they do well. And that's something that took me a little bit of time. I'm sure I did it better in person than I did on the phone, but I still was so protective of my time. I didn't want to give away too much information. I wanted to just get what I needed so I could give them a quote. And what a difference when you have that connection. Just like you said, they feel psyched on their vendor when they feel like their vendor gets them. And that's us. We're the vendor who gets them.
Well, and then that's what they say behind your back when they're talking to their bridesmaids who might get married soon, or when they're talking to their mother-in-law or their soon-to-be mother-in-law, or, you know, whoever they talk to, they're going to say, oh my gosh, she actually cared about me. She asked about us. She even like talked about the mushroom essay that I wrote for them and said, like, maybe we should put mushrooms into the design. Like, but that is something that like we forget how much of an impact that makes. And then when more people talk about you, it's like, that's the woman. You see that woman over there? She's the one who I had the best customer service with. Not the DJ, not the caterer, but the florist. And I think that's super important.
And it's intangible, right? Like what you're talking about are the things that make your brand untouchable, because no one can duplicate that. It's what you do that feels special to the customer. So yeah, listening to the customer is huge. And, you know, this is something I am guilty of not doing sometimes. You got to take detailed notes on the flower stuff. Sometimes I get so into like the conversation and then I hang up. I'm like, what are these 3 words I have written here? How about complete sentences next time, right? So don't get so caught up in the conversation that you forget to take notes. But, you know, that listening piece is really, really critical. And, you know, I was talking about this with florists in the British Florist Association, and one of the florists said, you know, I think we get so caught up, of course she said it with a British accent, but she said, I think we get so caught up on, you know, proving that we're the experts at something that we talk too much in our consultations and we don't listen. And I was like, that was me for a really long time. So the listening piece is huge. After we have put on our listening ears, we gathered all that information. Now this is where the rubber hits the road, right? For real, we got to send out a prompt proposal. And florists drag their feet on proposals for lots of reasons. Takes too much time. I don't know if they're going to book anyway. I wasn't sure if they were that into us. I've got to wash my hair, right? You can come up with so many excuses as a florist to not write that proposal right now, but the prompt proposal step is so critical. So what I aim to do is send a proposal within 5 to 7 days of our initial consultation. If I can send it sooner, I will, but I set my own deadline and I communicate that deadline, right, to the client so they know when to expect it. And when I send the quote more quickly, it allows the client to book more quickly. And the longer that you take to send a quote, the longer you're allowing that client to lose those good feelings they had in that conversation with you, shop around and go to other people, or just plain old lose the momentum of planning, because we all know that happens too. We've all done that. We're like, yeah, we're going to start this thing today. And then you're like, I'm going to walk away from it, right? We don't want them walking away. Keep them on the timeline. So the best way really that I have found to do this is to keep my proposals short and sweet. So again, I've got a template on how exactly how much information I share in my proposals, but it basically breaks down like this. You follow your own template, or you can get my template, realflowerbusiness.com, but you follow the template, and that makes it so that you're not retyping everything all the time. In your proposal, you're sending a general description. We're not doing stem counts. We're not putting exact varieties and flower names necessarily. General description that we had the same conversation is really the crux of it. You and I had a same conversation. That's what I want them to understand. Even though I'm using a template, I want it to feel authentic. I'm going to clearly state my pricing when I send this to them, including my minimum. I'm going to include a contract so that they know all the terms, everything, how this works, when payment is due, all of those things. And this short and sweet proposal has an expiration date. They don't have until the end of time to decide whether they want to work with me. There's an expiration date of, again, 5 to 7 days. Important thing, 2 sides to my steps. The first is what I need the client to do, right? So that's what we've gone through here, filling out my form, booking the call, and then they have to reply to my quote before it expires. But then the other side is what I promise to the client. So the promises or the guarantees from me and from my brand. So these are the things like, I'll send you the quote within 5 to 7 days, and then actually sending the quote in 5 to 7 days, answering their questions honestly, and letting them know that we will meet after we're booked. Simply by indicating that, no one asks me to meet before we're booked. I've defined it for them. Giving them everything they need to move forward is also a really critical piece of this step number 4, you guys, because what happens, I'll get questions sometimes from florists, they'll say, so do you send the quote and then after they accept it, you send the contract? I want them to see everything all at once. Sorry, needed a sip for a sec. Okay, how do they book you? What are the steps to booking you? When is the deposit due? The minimum spend. Again, you gotta be clear about what does it take to get you there that day? Make it clear to them. Here's why this is super important. People say, well, what about if they decide later that they're going to do their own centerpieces? Or what if they decide that, let's not even use the word decide. What if they have to cut back their guest list and so everything gets cut back? When you have the minimum established, those things don't matter. They can cut the centerpieces as long as you're okay with that. They just got to spend more for the ceremony now, right? You can, as long as they're hitting that minimum spend for you, you're still winning at life because you're still getting what you need to move forward. How do they sign the contract? Is it an e-signature? Do they have to print it out and mail it to you? Make it all super duper clear. What's your mailing address? What is it? How do I get you this money? And who do they make the payment out to? This is so basic, right? So many people are missing these steps. They don't define how to book, when it's due, what the minimum is, right? Get it together, people. We could do this.
It gets a little difficult because it's second nature for you as your business owner because you do it all the time. But I think sometimes with especially with bridal clients, like this is the first time and hopefully the only time that they're planning a wedding. So this is brand new to them. It's brand new territory. It's unfamiliar. And if you take the care to really walk them through those steps, it again goes back to building that trust relationship because they have clear expectations. They know exactly what to do and when, how to do it. And you've made it super easy for them. And then in turn, you've made it super easy on yourself because you don't have 100 questions from a bride about like, how do I do this? Where do I sign the contract? How do I pay you? That type of thing.
Yeah. Well, and you know, when you make it easy for them to book, guess what? They do. It's this chicken and the egg thing, right? Which comes first, the easy steps or the booking? It's easy, the steps, and then the booking. That's how it works. So when we make it complicated, when they're not sure where to send something, again, it's just like that flower girl question. They get hung up. They get caught up. Wait a minute. I don't know when to send it, where to send this. All right, I'll do that later, right? Whereas if it's click here to sign, here's where you send it, they're like checks in the mail, done. You know, I've sent out quotes to people and had them accept it within 1 hour of sending the quote. Not because I am like the only florist available for their wedding, but because of these steps. These steps made it easy to get to that, yeah, I'm going to do this. I'm ready to book.
Making it easy, especially with weddings too, because there's so many moving parts. They're working with multiple vendors. There's so much on that, like planning a wedding checklist, that the easier you make it, the more grateful they're going to be. I think that makes the decision for them to book with you much easier when you take some of the guesswork and some of the work out of that process.
Yeah, the
Well, and
guesswork and the work.
Think about how seamless then for you as well. Like, let's say you have 5 brides that you're dealing with, because you're not just dealing with one bride. You should have multiple clients probably going through this process at different points.
Yep.
So the easier it is for the customer, then you're not having to handhold them through the whole thing. You've already have that already set up and ready to go. And you don't have as many dancing pieces outside of you that you're like, okay, I got to follow up with this bride and I need to talk with this mom. Like that's all kind of taken care of with this method.
So true. We want to simplify for everybody. It's easier for us and it's easier for them. And again, you just made the perfect point about this is their only time or their first time planning this, right? That's always one of my favorite questions, like things that people say when they're like, I've never done this before. I'm like, no kidding, I mean, some of my customers have done it before, but the vast majority have not, or even if it's like their sister got married or their brother got married or something. So they have some familiarity with how this works. When we treat everybody like they've never done this before, and that's something that florists are guilty of. We must be honest with ourselves. Florists are guilty of presuming people have read every single word on our website. How do they not know my minimum? How do they not know this? It's on you, people. It's on you to treat them like they know nothing, but not in a way where they're bad people for not knowing anything. They're just how you want them, right? So when somebody says to me, this is my first time, I've never done this before, I say, that's just how I like them, right? That's because it's true. I love that this is your first time and you don't know how this works. So let me show you. I want to be an easy yes, right? That's what this all leads to. I want to share enough information that they know we're on the same page, but not so much information that I am resentful of the time that I spent or feel literally hurt inside, like a little crying inside because they didn't pick me, right? Has to be a working situation that we're dealing with here, not a heartbreaking situation. So a couple more tips here. Itemizing is optional, right? Because people will say, should I itemize? Should I not? And people have very strong opinions about whether you should or you shouldn't. I personally itemize. But you should do what works for you in your business, but you should definitely put an expiration date on there. This is the single best thing I've ever done in my business. Literally, if I had to like pinpoint, there's just the one thing that is the one smartest thing I have ever done, putting the expiration date. Because again, smart decisions work for both parties. And so it worked for my client because they knew how much time they had now instead of just, I could consider this for the rest of my life. And it worked for me because I knew when to check in. And that's another really common question from floral designers. When do I follow up? The expiration date is your in. So it's part of your process when you put the expiration date on there. Encourages the client to act, right? Because this thing expires. And it gives you the prompt to follow up and close the sale. It helps you also to identify price shoppers, because price shoppers will be more resistant to the expiration date. Price shoppers need more time to get more quotes, right? And just because somebody's shopping for price doesn't mean they're not a good customer for you or that they're doing something wrong. It's just, again, when you're at a certain place in your business where you got the cogs and the wheels and things are turning, I want them to pick me for me. I don't want them to pick me for price. I want to know if they're looking for multiple options or if they've got a feeling about me and I'm the first one they came to and they are ready to book. Just good to know where you stack up, right? It's a self-check too. And then the question always comes to me, well, what about when it expires? What do I do? What if it expires? What now, right? So that's up to you. you can give them more time. You can tell them that the quote expired and you're no longer available for their date. But to me, the smartest thing to do is to simply follow up. And so what I suggest is you either mark your calendar for the day before the quote expires, or the day it expires, or the day after, like whatever your jam is, and you can just check in. So here's like an example of what an email template might look like if I'm going to follow up on a proposal. Dear customer, right? I have a note on my calendar. Notice it's honest and transparent. See how it lines up with what I just told you should do? See how it's just honest? It's just conversation. I have a note in my calendar that your proposal is expiring on Friday, and I wanted to check in to see if you have any questions for me or need any additional information at this time. If you decide you'd like to work with me, a signed contract and deposit will secure your date. Again, if any questions for me, please don't hesitate to be in touch. So you'll notice I'm laying out the steps again here, right? I'm telling them what they need to do to book. And actually another sentence I might even add in here would be something like, if you've already, because I've sent this plenty of times, if you've already decided to work with another florist, I wish you all the best with the rest of your planning. And then if you have any questions for me, don't hesitate to be in touch. Because even the client themselves sometimes is afraid to tell you they booked somebody else because they did really like you. They just can't afford you, right? Or they did really like you, but they met with another florist who is clearly more experienced and a better fit for them, right? So it's just, you got to be able to say, if you booked with somebody else, that's okay, so that they can say, in fact, we did book with somebody else, and thank you for making that okay, right? Thank you for letting me be able to say to you, hey, I'm not booking with you. Because even though I don't personally use the word ghosting in my real life, ghosting is, right, the thing that people complain about. If you do this step, you cannot be ghosted because you have closed the loop. You have followed up, and if they no longer want to, if they don't reply to you, well, I guess then you were ghosted. But really what you did is you messed something up earlier on in your process because you let somebody who wasn't serious enough into your stream, you know? So every little thing becomes a lesson. When you have the systems in place, you can troubleshoot your systems and be like, oh, you know where they got through? It's when they said, flowers weren't that important to them in that inquiry form. I should have known then, you know? We can tweak our processes when we actually have the processes in place. Closing the sale is easier when we earn trust, right? That is the thing to know. When they already trust you, it's like the sale is yours to lose if you hit all the boxes for them. So listen, learn, and lead. That's what the communication is going to let you do. Listen, learn, lead. So I always like to end with taking action. So when you take action to be a communications leader, it means you're going to pre-qualify your clients with that inquiry form. You're going to start with a phone consultation so that, like I say, I don't want to clean my bathroom and clear out my office and get all ready for a meeting if you're not really that serious yet. So start with that phone consultation. I'm going to send the quote promptly and make sure it's got the expiration date and all the instructions they need, right? Exactly what they need in terms of steps to book. And then you're going to follow your template, right? So for your phone consultation, for your proposal, follow a script, create one if you don't have one yet. This is what's going to really save you time in the long run, because when you have a flow and you have a general sense of how this works, it becomes really easy to do. For me personally, the way this often goes is somebody sends an inquiry. I will reply to them within 24 to 48 hours. We book a call. We talk for maybe 30 to 45 minutes. I send the quote and they book. And it's just that easy. I try to spend no more than an hour writing my initial quote, because I do want it to be detailed and personal. but I don't need to tell them, you know, every single variety of flower that's going to be in their bouquet. I don't need to tell them, you know, again, like some people even do stem counts. If you do stem counts in your proposals, please stop doing that. That's just not a necessary thing. Never at any point, even after they book, they never get a stem count. We want to just make sure we know how much time we're investing. Again, when you streamline this, it doesn't break your heart if they don't book. You just have a process that you're in, and the people who are right go through the process and get to yes, and the people who are not the right fit go through the process and then cut out at some point. They take an off ramp, and then we thank them. Thank you. Thank you for choosing the right route for you. And everyone is in the right place, right? Everyone is in the right place at that point, because we can't book every customer.
Well, I love what you said about stem counts, because we would never ask the caterer, like, how many buns are you going to have? How many buns are going to be on the table? Like, that's a point that you don't need to know. And
you trust the caterer to do their job.
Yeah. You just know that the caterer is going to show up with the right amount of bread rolls, like plain and simple. If they need to be gluten-free, great.
It's a really great, I love that comparison, because it's like, we're going to just do our job. We're going to fill this to value. We're going to make sure it looks pretty. But, you know, should we say we're going to have 9 finesse roses in this bouquet? Or should we just say it's going to have peach roses, burgundy dahlias, you know, orange callas, or even just that it's going to be burgundy, pink, and orange? Mm-hmm. Boom. and let me pick the rest of it, you know? So everyone has to have their own flavor of what they're comfortable sharing. And I am still flabbergasted at people requesting stem counts, but more so that florists actually do still put those in for some reason.
Well, I have a question. So when do you require people finish payment, do all that? Because you did talk about like a down payment, but then when do you, like, in your scheme of things, does that happen for you?
So that's such an important point. So the final payment for me comes in 3 weeks before the wedding. With COVID, I've sort of changed it a little bit, where it's like, if you need an extra week, I can wait till 2 weeks before the wedding. Moving forward, though, in 2021, I don't think I'm going to do 2 weeks. You got to know we're doing this or we're not doing this. And really, the industry standard is anywhere from 3 to 4 weeks before the wedding is when the payment is due. And I don't accept credit cards. They can only pay with check. And they always pay, you know, again, that piece is also part of your system. You can't just go, well, they didn't pay. Did you invoice them? Oh, I'll tell you, that really guts me. My payment's late. The payment didn't come. Well, did you invoice them? Well, no. You know, you're not a credit card company where they just owe it to you whether you bill them or not. You know, we have to follow up. So that becomes, I have a wedding workflow that's part of my templates as well. And that's where I walk through my 16 steps to client management. And one of the steps is that final check-in. Checking in to let them know now is the time to let me know, do you need 14 centerpieces or do you need 18 centerpieces? Do you still have 9 bridesmaids or are you down to 7? Like, what is are you up to 12 now, right? So letting them know now is the time where I need your final changes. And again, explaining the steps. Here's when the final payment is due. And then, and this is part of my email templates too, and then I will order your flowers. So it's clear to them this if and then, right? If you have changes to make, I'll make those changes. Then you're going to pay me. And then after you've paid me, I will order your flowers. It's a real incentivizer.
That 3 to 4 week window too is probably just about right. I think, because you're right. By that point, are we doing this? Are we not doing this? And from a wholesaler perspective, if I can just jump in on behalf of Koehler and Dram here, like for us, we are your supplier. So in order for us to get the roses or the special order items that you need in, we need a minimum of 10 days notice on that to guarantee that you're going to be able to get your product. And even then, sometimes it's tricky. We can usually find stuff that, that is difficult as long as we have enough time to search the market. So, but if you wait until the week of the event to get paid and then order the product, the chances that we're going to be able to find it are much, much slimmer. So in order to give your wholesaler enough notice to be able to special order the product you need that payment to order the flowers with ample time to also communicate with your wholesaler. So that 3 to 4 week window is probably about that sweet spot. And I mean, especially, I know you mentioned kind of cutting that down during COVID here, but and obviously sometimes there's extenuating circumstances, but that 3 to 4 week window is really where you got to be.
Yeah. I mean, when you think about it, you're not going to be able to serve your client well if you don't get the product in. And if you don't order the product in enough time, you're not doing your job, right? That's the bottom line. Florists, we should not be waiting until 5 days before an event. Do you love your wholesaler? Do you respect their time? And, they want, again, it's like the two sides, right? You want us to succeed. We want to succeed. And the best way is for us to get those orders as early as possible. Now, I am totally guilty of being like, oh, I need this in 2 weeks. My supplier is always great about it. I'm never asking, though, for something that they don't always have if I'm doing that. When I need, a certain amount of orchids or something, if I'm like, I need all white phalaenopsis orchids for a wedding, I'm not going to wait till 5 days or even a week beforehand. I'm going to reach out. I'm going to give them an estimate. I'm going to double check the price probably on my end to make sure that my recipes are tight so that my floral recipes don't have me over budget. It's a courtesy to everybody to just like, you guys pay us, customer pays us, we order, right? And then we pay, I know people have different accounts or whatever, but the bottom line is the way I see it, even if I'm billed at the end of the month, I incurred this expense today. And so I have to be paid today at the latest, right? I can't be waiting till after a wedding to get paid. That never works out. Ever. Do not ever let somebody say, oh, I'll pay you after the wedding, right? 3 weeks beforehand is the latest that you should be getting payment, 21 days in advance.
There's a lot of product that we have all the time too, but especially thinking quantities. And I know we talked about not sharing stem counts with your clients, but you know what you need. Right. So if you need, hundreds of a certain variety of a rose or hundreds of orchids, like we're going to have some, but we're probably not going to have as much as you need if you wait until the last minute. So a lot of that needs to be taken into account with special orders. So again, that advance notice is very much appreciated, and do yourself a favor too and plan ahead like that. It's just easier for everybody in the long run.
Yep. I definitely agree with that. I'm gonna scooch out of my screen share here. If I can find, where's my mouse? I can't find my mouse. There we go. Awesome, you guys. Oh, there you are. Nice and big now.
So you guys, I hope you enjoyed our time with Alison today. She has been wonderful. In the materials that go out, we will share links to Alison's extra materials here. Like she mentioned, she's got email templates, some other tools that you guys can use. So we'll make sure to share that with you. If you guys have questions, please leave them in the comments, email us, ask your sales rep. We're open to communications, and we'll try to set up a follow-up with Alison here too to get those questions answered. So again, Alison, thank you so much for being with us today. We had a great time. That was awesome, very enlightening. So thank you for your time and thank you for your knowledge.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm so glad. I was so bummed when March hit and I wasn't able to come. I was like, I'm going to Minneapolis.
It's the worst timing ever.
It was the worst timing ever, but I really love that we're going to adapt and do this instead. And we're going to reach people and we're going to answer their questions. And I'm totally happy to be a resource for your customers. So thanks for having me.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.